world rewards a certain kind of performance. It rewards the loudest voice in the room, the most confident smile in the boardroom, the person who speaks before they think and somehow gets applauded for it. You have watched this happen your entire life. You have watched people of average depth rise into positions of real consequence, while you sharper, more careful, more aware of what is actually happening beneath the surface, remain in a lane that does not reflect what you are capable of. This is not an accident, it is architecture. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this with a precision that made him one of the most feared and misread minds in Western history. He wrote The Prince in 1513. Stripped of his position, exiled from the city he had served for 14 years. What he produced in that exile was a document that 5 centuries of comfortable thinkers have tried to dismiss as immoral, cynical, dangerous. They call it dark psychology. They call it manipulation. They call it a handbook for villains. What they will never say, what they cannot afford to say, is that it is simply accurate. It is a description of how power actually moves, written by a man who watched it move from the inside and decided the truth was more valuable than the comfort of pretending otherwise. The 7 habits in this video are not personality quirks. They are signs of intelligence that the modern world has failed to contextualize correctly. They are the habits of intelligence that Machiavelli's entire philosophy was built to recognize, cultivate, and deploy. And if you have been carrying them as burdens, as sources of exhaustion, isolation, and quiet frustration, what follows is the reframe that changes everything. This is not motivation. This is psychology. This is Machiavellian philosophy translated into the language of what you already are. Pay attention. You have earned this. Habit 1. You wargame reality before anyone else does. There is a passage in Machiavelli's The Prince that most readers move past without fully stopping. He writes that the wise leader does not think only about what is happening. He thinks about what will happen. He maps the territory before he walks into it. He runs the scenario before the scenario has a chance to run him. This is a statement about the deepest architecture of a particular kind of mind. And if you are the kind of person who cannot help but play out the consequences of a decision before anyone else in the room has finished celebrating it, you already know exactly what he means. Think about what happens inside you when a plan is presented, when an opportunity appears, when someone announces a partnership or a strategy or a direction with complete confidence. While everyone else is processing the surface, the excitement, the optimism, the potential. Your mind is already 2 or 3 moves deep into what this implies. You are not being negative. You are not being difficult. You are doing something that the people around you genuinely cannot do. You are running the simulation before the simulation runs. This is one of the most consistent and well-documented signs of high IQ and elite cognitive function. Research into what psychologists call prospective cognition, the mental capacity to simulate future states, shows that individuals who habitually preload consequence into present moment thinking make dramatically better decisions over time. They lose less. They recover faster. They are surprised less often, and they are almost never surprised in the same way twice. Machiavelli built his entire analytical framework around what he called prudenza, a Latin-rooted concept that means far more than caution. It means the disciplined, active, forward-projecting intelligence that prepares for fortune before fortune arrives. He distinguishes it sharply from the reactive posture of those who wait for conditions to clarify before they think. The reactive mind sees the storm only when it is already raining. The mind operating with prudenza felt the pressure change in the air 3 days before the clouds appeared. The biblical wisdom tradition recognized the same quality in a different register. Proverbs 22 says, "The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. The contrast Proverbs draws is stark. The simple are people of adequate intelligence who simply fail to deploy it forward in time. They respond to the world as it arrives. The prudent reshape the world in advance by reading it accurately. This is not a matter of education or raw intelligence in the abstract sense. It is a matter of cognitive discipline, a habit of intelligence so embedded in how you process reality that you cannot turn it off even when you want to. And this is where Machiavelli's concept of virtù becomes essential to understanding your own psychology. Virtù is not virtue in the moral sense. It is closer to excellence of will, the quality of character that meets fortune on its own terms rather than on fortune's terms. He writes that fortune behaves like a raging river that floods without warning. And the person who built levees in the dry season stands above the waterline when the flood comes. The person who waited for proof of the flood before acting is already underwater. Your mind builds levees, continuously, even when no one asks it to. Even when the people around you are standing in the sun laughing at the idea of a flood, you are already doing the calculations. Here is the psychology behind why this exhausts you. Running forward simulations is among the most metabolically expensive cognitive operations the human brain performs. It requires you to hold multiple potential futures in working memory simultaneously. Evaluate their relative probability, weigh the costs of each, and carry that information in the background of every present moment interaction. Most people's brains do not do this. They are not wired to sustain it. When they encounter the future in real time, they simply respond. This is why they appear so much more relaxed than you. They are lighter because they are carrying less. They are carrying less because they are not seeing what you are seeing. The Machiavellian reframe is this: the exhaustion you feel from constant forward simulation is not a symptom of overthinking psychology run wild. It is the invoice for cognitive work performed in advance work that everyone around you will be forced to do after the event. When the cost is far higher and the options far narrower, you pay the price early, they pay it late. And late is expensive in ways that early never is. The habit Machiavelli describes as foundational to every effective exercise of power is not charisma, not rank, not connections. It is the refusal to be caught unprepared. The general who surveys the battlefield before the army arrives. The diplomat who models every possible counteroffer before the negotiation begins. The leader who has already decided what they will do when the alliance fails before the alliance has even been signed. This is dark psychology only to the people who believe that power operates on good faith. For everyone else, it is simply seeing clearly with your eyes open. One more dimension of this that human psychology rarely talks about honestly. Your wargaming of reality is not just a cognitive strategy. It is a form of respect for the stakes involved. You take the future seriously because you understand, somewhere below conscious articulation, that the future is where all consequences live. The past is fixed. The present is a transition. The future is the only territory that is still negotiable, and negotiating it requires you to see it first as clearly as possible. Before the conditions harden into facts you cannot reverse. That is not paranoia. That is mastery of the only game that actually matters. Habit 2. You're reading the room while everyone else is in it. Machiavelli writes in The Prince that men judge by what they see, rarely by what they touch. Most people receive the performance and call it the person. They take the presentation at face value because the alternative reading beneath it. Tracking the gap between what is shown and what is true requires a level of sustained attention that is, frankly, uncomfortable. It requires you to be in a room and simultaneously outside of it. It requires holding your social participation in one hand and your analytical observation in the other, running them as parallel processes without either one collapsing the other. This is one of the rarest personality traits in human psychology. And if it describes you, you already know the specific texture of the isolation it creates. You are at a meeting. Someone is making a case for a decision that the group is moving toward accepting. The words are confident. The data is selectively presented. The energy in the room is gravitating toward agreement. And inside your mind, something is running a completely different analysis from the one happening out loud. You are tracking the slight hesitation before a particular number is cited. You are noticing the way a question was answered with slightly more energy than the question warranted, which means the question was anticipated, which means the narrative was prepared, which means what is being presented as organic and transparent has been engineered. You are registering the micro shift in someone's posture when a specific name is mentioned, the speed with which a potential downside was acknowledged and moved past. The fact that the person who would normally push back on this kind of proposal has gone uncharacteristically quiet. This is not suspicion. This is not cynicism. This is one of the clearest signs you are intelligent in a way that goes beyond raw processing speed. What you are doing is reading the layered structure of human communication, the signal buried in the noise, the content embedded in the container, the truth distributed across everything that is not quite the stated message. Machiavelli's entire political career was built on this capacity. His diplomatic dispatches from foreign courts are extraordinary documents precisely because he never operated on the surface layer when he could read the infrastructure underneath. The psychology behind this capacity connects directly to what researchers call social signal detection, and the ability to process high-frequency, low-amplitude cues in interpersonal communication that most observers filter out entirely. The human face can produce thousands of distinct muscular configurations. Most social interaction uses a narrow subset of these. When the configuration used does not perfectly match the verbal content being delivered, a gap opens. Most people's attention passes over that gap without registering it. Yours stops there. Your attention is drawn to inconsistency the way a skilled engineer is drawn to a stress fracture in a structure that looks solid from the outside. Here is the Machiavellian layer that most psychology videos will never add to this conversation. He writes in The Discourses that every person reveals who they truly are in 3 conditions: when they are given power they did not expect, when they absorb a loss they did not plan for, and when they believe no one is watching. The 3rd condition is the intelligence goldmine. You have filed these moments for years. The conversation that shifted when someone forgot you were in the room. The comment made in relief after a public performance ended. The behavior that emerged when the pressure dropped and the mask relaxed. You remember these data points with unusual clarity because your mind classified them correctly as the real signal in a transmission that is usually managed, curated, and controlled. Here is what Machiavellian philosophy would say directly to your experience. The ability to read what people are actually doing while they perform what they want you to think they are doing is one of the foundational competencies of anyone who moves with genuine agency in the world. The alternative is to act on managed information, to make decisions based on the picture someone else constructed for you rather than the reality underneath it. And a person acting on managed information, regardless of how intelligent or decisive they are, is executing someone else's strategy. They are a piece being moved by a player who understood the board better. Your social exhaustion, the depletion you feel after sustained interaction, is not a malfunction of your psychology. It is evidence of the intensity of the work your mind performs in those environments. Ordinary conversation is not ordinary for you. It is a multi-layer information environment that your brain processes at full resolution. The fatigue is real because the work is real. The book of Job describes a quality of perception that sees what is hidden from the casual eye. Job says, "I sought him and found him not. He passed before me and I did not see him. He moved on and I could not perceive him." This is the experience of engaging with a reality that is always slightly ahead of your conscious grasp, always more layered than the last reading suggested. Your attention does not rest because reality does not rest. The strategic question Machiavelli would put to you is not whether you have this capacity. Clearly, you do. The question he would press is whether you are deploying it with discipline or suffering it without direction. Because reading the room without acting on what you read is not wisdom. It is refined suffering. The signs of intelligence you carry are only signs until you build the architecture to convert them into movement. If this is already shifting something in how you see yourself, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. Tell me which habit you recognized first. Your response shapes what this channel builds next. Habit 3. You're loyal to outcomes, not positions. There is a moment in the history of strategy that most people encounter as a story about military tactics. But Machiavelli would read as something far more fundamental about the psychology of power and its relationship to change. When the conditions that produced a successful position disappear, the person married to that position is no longer operating strategically. They are operating sentimentally. And sentiment, in the domain of real consequence, is a liability that will eventually be called in. You have been in this situation. You have held a belief, a strategy, an alliance, a professional position, and then you watch the evidence accumulate that something had shifted, that what was true is no longer true, that the framework you built your actions around has been quietly invalidated by the movement of circumstances you could not fully control. And you did something that people around you found disorienting. You changed. Not your values, not your objectives, your position, your method. The path, because the path had changed, and walking the old one was going to take you somewhere you did not want to go. Machiavellian philosophy is unambiguous on this point. He writes that the leader who relies entirely on the conditions that produced their first success will fall when those conditions shift, because fortune shifts continuously. The only durable quality is adaptability of method toward stability of purpose. You keep the destination constant. You treat the route as infinitely negotiable. This is not inconsistency. It is the highest form of strategic discipline, and it is vanishingly rare in human psychology. The psychology of why most people cannot do this is rooted in what researchers call the sunk cost fallacy, layered on top of identity investment. The longer someone has held a position intellectually, professionally, relationally, the more their sense of self becomes entangled with that position. To update the position is experienced as a kind of self-dismemberment, a threat to coherent identity that the psychological immune system resists with enormous force. This is why intelligent people defend obviously failing strategies. This is why organizations persist in approaches that the evidence has thoroughly discredited. The position has become load-bearing for something far more important than accuracy. For the person's understanding of who they are. You do something different. When the evidence shifts, you shift. When the strategy fails, you diagnose it rather than defend it. When a belief you held with complete conviction turns out to be wrong, you feel something that most people in that moment never reach: a kind of relief, a clarifying sensation that Machiavelli would recognize as the mind returning to its proper function after a period of distortion. You are not attached to having been right. You are attached to being accurate going forward. These are fundamentally different orientations, and the gap between them is where the real separation between ordinary and strategic thinking lives. The biblical tradition frames this in the story of Solomon's famous judgment. Two women both claimed the same infant. Solomon proposed to split the child. The first woman agreed. The second woman, the real mother, relinquished her claim rather than see the child destroyed. Solomon recognized the truth by observing who adapted their stated position in response to new information about the stakes involved. The real mother did not hold her position. She released it, and in releasing it, she revealed a deeper loyalty not to the argument, but to what the argument was supposed to protect. This is the psychology of outcome loyalty operating at the level of instinct. Philip Tetlock's 20-year study of expert forecasting found something that most people in high-status professions find deeply uncomfortable. The most accurate forecasters were the ones who held their predictions loosely, updated readily, and incorporated contradictory information without defensiveness. The least accurate were the ones with the greatest certainty, the most established reputations, the deepest investment in being definitively right. Expertise and accuracy became inversely correlated beyond a certain point, and the mechanism was attachment. The experts were too attached to their frameworks to let the evidence revise them in real time. Your capacity to update is not flakiness. It is not lack of conviction. It is the cognitive architecture of someone who has correctly identified what loyalty is actually for. You are loyal to outcomes. You are loyal to the objectives that matter. You treat every position, every framework, every methodology as a tool in service of something larger. And when the tool stops working, you find another one without the theatrics of defending the broken tool as if it were your identity. This is one of the defining rare personality traits in human psychology. And it is one of the qualities that Machiavelli identified as separating those who shape events from those who are shaped by them. One more dimension worth naming. The people who mistake your adaptability for inconsistency are telling you something about themselves. They need you to stay fixed so that they can orient themselves around you. Your fluidity disrupts their framework. Your willingness to say, "I was wrong, and here is what I now understand," is experienced by ego-invested minds as a threat, rather than as the intellectual honesty it actually is. Machiavelli would note this dynamic without sentiment. The people who need you to be wrong because you updated are the people who need to be right more than they need to be accurate. That is their constraint. You carry no obligation to share it. Habit 4. You see the trap before you see the path. The fox and the lion appear in Machiavelli's The Prince, in a passage that has been quoted superficially for centuries and understood deeply by very few. He writes that the effective leader must know how to use the nature of both the lion for its strength, the fox for its capacity to see traps. Then he says something that almost no one bothers to finish reading. A prince who is only the lion walks into snares he could have avoided. The force that makes you dangerous also makes you predictable, and predictable means manageable. And manageable means your power operates within a perimeter that someone else has already set. The fox survives by seeing the snare before its foot touches the wire. You have this capacity. You have always had it. And the people around you have experienced it as a kind of deflation. You are the person who identifies the problem in the plan before anyone else has finished being excited about the plan. You are the one who asks the question that makes the room go quiet. You see the shape of what is missing more clearly than you see the shape of what is present. And what is missing is almost always more important than what is there. This is not pessimism. This is one of the most documented and consistently misunderstood signs of high IQ and elevated analytical intelligence. The cognitive operation you are performing is called absence detection, the ability to register what should be present but is not, and to read the implications of that absence accurately. In statistics, this is the fundamental insight behind survival analysis. In strategy, it is the difference between the person who acts on the picture presented and the person who asks who painted the picture and what they left out of the frame. The Roman general Fabius Maximus deployed this capacity against Hannibal in the Second Punic War. When Hannibal crossed the Alps and began tearing through the Italian peninsula, every Roman commander who faced him directly was annihilated. Fabius refused to engage directly. He saw the trap that Hannibal's genius was tactical combat, that meeting him in pitched battle was the snare laid for exactly the kind of confident lion mind that Rome had historically produced. Fabius fought the campaign Hannibal could not fight: attrition, supply disruption, terrain management. His contemporaries called him Cunctator the Delayer as an insult. History preserved it as one of the most honorable titles in Roman military memory. He saw the trap while everyone else was demanding the path. Here is the psychology facts dimension that most self-improvement content skips entirely. Trap detection is not a neutral, analytical skill. It is a survival mechanism shaped by environment. If you grew up in conditions where good things regularly concealed bad consequences, where generous offers had strings attached, where enthusiastic agreements came with hidden costs, where the path that looked clearest was the one most reliably baited, your mind developed heightened sensitivity to the gap between presentation and reality. What you are experiencing as a signs of intelligence category is also the legacy of an environment that required you to be perceptive, to be safe. Machiavellian philosophy holds both of these truths simultaneously, which is part of what makes it so much more honest than the sanitized psychology that refuses to acknowledge that sharp perception often emerges from sharp experience. He does not ask whether your capacity is comfortable. He asks whether it is accurate. He asks whether you are reading the traps correctly or whether you are reading traps where there are none, which is a different failure mode, equally expensive. The discipline he would insist on is targeting. The fox does not run at full speed through every field. It reads the terrain. It deploys its perceptual capacity proportionally to the actual risk of the environment. You are carrying a precision instrument. The question worth asking yourself honestly is whether you are calibrating it to the situation or running it at maximum sensitivity across every context, which produces not safety but exhaustion, and not accuracy but ambient suspicion that eventually corrupts your reading of everything. The trap you see clearly is real. The discipline is knowing when to act on what you see and when to hold the information in reserve, building your picture incrementally rather than acting on every inference before it is fully supported by the evidence. Proverbs 4 says, "The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day." The key word is brighter sequential, accumulative, patient. Trap detection as dark psychology used unwisely is the person who sees every shadow as a pit. Trap detection as a habit of intelligence deployed with maturity is the person who distinguishes shadows from pits before they bet their weight on either. You have the eyes of a strategist. Use them with the patience of one. Habit 5. Social exhaustion is the receipt of intelligence gathering. You leave a social environment, a dinner, a meeting, a gathering of people you may even genuinely like, and something in you is emptied in a way that sleep cannot fully repair. The people who were there with you seem energized. They are already making plans for the next one. They carry the social exchange forward as fuel. You carry it home as weight. And for years, the explanation offered to you by the world, by pop psychology, by well-meaning people who read a paragraph about introversion, has been that you simply find people draining, that you are wired differently, that you need more alone time to recharge your particular kind of battery. That explanation is accurate as far as it goes. It just does not go far enough. What the introversion framework does not account for is the qualitative difference in what your mind actually does during social interaction. The average person in a room is engaged in one primary cognitive operation: processing the explicit content of what is being said and formulating responses to it. They are participating. You are doing something architecturally more complex. You are participating and simultaneously running a parallel operation that most minds do not run at all: a continuous, real-time analysis of everything that surrounds the explicit content. The micro-expressions that flash across a face in the half-second before the social mask reasserts itself. The slight change in vocal register when a specific topic is introduced. The way laughter arrived 2 beats early, which means the story being told has been told before in exactly this way. The body posture that opened toward one person in the group and subtly closed toward another, revealing the actual hierarchy of trust in a room that everyone is performing as equal. The silence from a person whose silence means something different tonight than it meant last week. And you registered the difference without consciously deciding to. This is intelligence gathering. You are running a surveillance operation inside a social environment, and you did not choose to. Your mind chose for you, because your mind cannot be in a room and not read it. Machiavellian philosophy describes this capacity in the context of what any effective strategist must do: gather real information in an environment flooded with managed information. Every room you walk into contains a layer of performance people presenting themselves as they wish to be perceived rather than as they are. They are offering you the picture they have chosen. Your mind goes past the picture to the infrastructure. And the gap between those two things, the picture and the infrastructure, is where the real psychology lives. The exhaustion you carry home is the metabolic cost of that operation. Human cognition runs on glucose and oxygen like every other biological process. And the cognitive load of simultaneous social participation, combined with high-resolution environmental analysis, is genuinely, measurably more expensive than ordinary social engagement. This is documented in studies of what psychologists call high-monitoring personalities, individuals whose attentional systems are calibrated to track more variables per unit time than average social cognition requires. They perform more cognitive work in identical social conditions. They extract more information. They also burn more fuel. Consider the metaphor of the difference between a tourist and an intelligence analyst walking through the same city. The tourist sees the architecture, the food, the weather. The analyst sees all of that and simultaneously reads the traffic patterns, the security presence, the behavioral anomalies, the relationship between the infrastructure and the people using it. Both walk the same streets for the same duration. The analyst arrives at the debrief room depleted in a way the tourist is not. This is signs of intelligence presented as a cost rather than a credential, which is why most people carrying it have never been given a framework that makes sense of the weight. Machiavelli would offer this reframe. The exhaustion is not the problem. The exhaustion is the evidence that the operation was real. A reconnaissance mission that produces no fatigue probably produced no intelligence. The question he would press you on is not how to become less exhausted, it is how to become more deliberate about when and where you run the full operation. Because the fox does not sprint through every environment at maximum capacity. It reads the terrain first. It allocates the intensity of its attention to the density of the actual risk or opportunity in the environment. Running full surveillance in a casual lunch with a trusted friend is a misallocation of a finite resource. Running it lazily in a high-stakes negotiation or a moment of social transition is how you miss what matters. You have one of the rarest personality traits in human psychology operating in the domain of interpersonal intelligence. The work now is not to diminish it. It is to govern it to bring the same strategic discipline you apply to forward simulations and outcome loyalty to the question of where this capacity is deployed and where it is conserved. Habit 6. You hide the full extent of what you are capable of. There is something in you that has always been uncomfortable with being seen too completely. You deflect genuine praise. You qualify your own competence in ways that confuse people who can see what you are capable of from the outside. When someone calls you smart directly, clearly, as a statement of what they genuinely observe, something in you contracts rather than expands. You have interpreted this for years through the lens of what popular psychology calls imposter syndrome, the feeling of fraudulence that apparently afflicts high performers across nearly every domain of achievement. The imposter syndrome frame has some truth in it. The Dunning-Kruger research is real people with deep expertise in a domain consistently underestimate their competence relative to people with shallow exposure. Because depth reveals the full architecture of what you do not yet know, while shallowness presents nothing to reveal. The more you know, the larger your visible frontier of ignorance becomes. This is a genuine feature of advanced cognition. And if you are someone whose knowledge in any domain has passed a certain threshold, you are living this asymmetry in real time. But the discomfort you feel about being seen fully is something deeper than imposter syndrome and more strategic than cognitive humility. It is one of the most consistently documented signs of intelligence in the domain of social and political navigation, the instinctive understanding that full visibility is a vulnerability in environments that are not fully safe. Machiavellian philosophy is explicit about this in a way that most psychology frameworks are not. The prince who reveals the full extent of his capabilities to every person in his orbit has given every potential adversary the complete picture they need to calculate a counter-strategy. Full transparency in an environment that is not fully trustworthy is not honesty. It is tactical carelessness. The capacity to remain partially opaque, to allow people to consistently slightly underestimate you, to operate from a position of strategic ambiguity about the ceiling of your capability. This is one of the most powerful forms of positional advantage available to anyone navigating complex social and professional environments. Think of what happens in the physical world when force is visible versus when it is concealed. A displayed army announces its disposition. A concealed army retains the advantage of surprise. You have been concealing your army without fully understanding why, and without fully understanding how to leverage the concealment rather than simply enduring its social awkwardness. The ancient Greeks had a concept they called metis, a form of intelligence that is cunning, adaptive, oblique, and deeply practical rather than abstract. In their mythology, Athena, goddess of both wisdom and strategy, embodies Metis alongside Sophia, the more elevated contemplative wisdom. Metis is specifically the intelligence that knows how to operate in conditions of uncertainty and opposition. It is not the intelligence that announces itself. It is the intelligence that navigates. Odysseus, the most celebrated practitioner of metis in Greek literature, survived conditions that destroyed stronger and more heroic men, precisely because he understood that capability undisclosed retained advantages that capability disclosed could never recover. You have been Odysseus in a room full of people who wanted you to be Achilles. Achilles is powerful and visible and magnificent and dies young because his vulnerabilities are as exposed as his strengths. Odysseus gets home. The psychological reframe Machiavellian philosophy provides here is not that you should feel better about your discomfort with visibility. It is that you should understand your discomfort as the operating instinct of a strategically calibrated mind, and then make a conscious decision about it rather than simply being governed by it unconsciously. Because discomfort with visibility, unconsciously carried,